ejected. They ejected from an air-conditioned cockpit. The difference for me was simply, that was my world. For decades. For decades. I spent only 1 year as a second lieutenant. I was in the hospital for part of that, and then I had to go to the infantry officer basic course for 8 weeks. And then I went out to do a charm school on Vietnamese language, but I already had taught myself to speak Vietnamese quite well. And so I took the test. So they kind of let me be an assistant instructor type of thing in the Vietnamese language. All of my instructors were North Vietnamese, so I spoke with a North Vietnamese accent. And then I went back to Vietnam when I was in the Phung Quang program, along with being with the Vietnamese Rangers. And it was great. The Vietnamese Rangers were tough soldiers, and we did very, very well. At that time, the American Army was starting to feel the effects of the anti-war movement in America. We had terrible racial problems within the Army as a whole. But in no unit that I ever commanded was I not able to get the soldiers all to understand that, listen, this is a joint effort. We have to do this together. It's not about survival. Units who went out and they called search and avoid always end up being ambushed and this, that, and the other. They were not ready for me, but within a week they evolved. I walked them fire base at night. Americans never went anywhere at night, but I made them walk off at night simply because in Vietnam, the enemy had to plan and put his supplies in front of himself before he could attack you. He didn't have like trucks to come and bring him new supplies and stuff. And if you did exactly what nobody else did, he wasn't prepared for that. And that was why I was able to walk them off at night. They were all scared to death. But I was very confident that the NVA could not put themselves together to attack us again. This happened right before the Battle of Loc Ninh, and I had put out, there were only a handful of advisors, but I had put out that I was tired of people stealing my gasoline, and I knew that it was the Sergeant Major of the 9th Vietnamese Regiment, and I said that the next person I found stealing my gasoline, I'd shoot him. And it was him, and I shot him. And because people had to understand, we weren't just a cash cow, we were there fighting alongside them. And nothing came of it. Only Lieutenant Colonel Schott, my boss, and I were there at the time. And the only thing the Vietnamese act was that we don't tell other people what happened, you know. And I don't know exactly what happened to him, except that they flew him out and they said, oh, well, you know, he'll be okay. But nobody stole my gasoline again. Yeah, we had all kind of restrictions on us, and I was never good dealing with restrictions. You know, we were told that the communists would have an offensive coming, but it would come out through Tay Ninh province, which was west of us. And I said, you know, they always come at Loc Ninh. Ho Chi Minh, in the training that I had as a Special Forces Sergeant, we learned history. And Ho Chi Minh said, if you want to see the soul of Vietnam, go to Loc Ninh. Because Loc Ninh is a former French penal colony. They took their prisoners and chained them out in the rubber to take the rubber from the trees. And of course, because it's shaded day and night, there were mosquitoes there, and they died of malaria out there. And so Loc Ninh was a very important place, and I went to MACV headquarters to explain to them why I thought they would come down Highway 13 and attack Loc Ninh, and the staff and I always had problems because they were a bunch of 8 to 5 guys who then went downtown Saigon and had a few beers. War is a 24-hour day job, and I was always a field guy. But when General Tran Van Cha came, he came with a total of 3 divisions. We were supposed to be like a tripwire only. They didn't expect Loc Ninh to last a day, but we held out for 3 days. And the 5th, 7th, and 9th North Vietnamese divisions. The 5th was called a Viet Cong division, but they didn't have any Viet Cong left anymore. And tanks and long-range artillery all hit Loc Ninh. And this led up, if you look in the history books, to the famous Battle of An Loc. And us holding out for 3 days is credited with giving them a chance to prepare. And the Battle of An Loc was the biggest tank infantry battle in the entire Vietnam War. I'm waiting for the sun to go down so I can get out of this camp. I thought that everyone inside the bunker was dead because they were all lying around when the communists came down, and I'm fighting them on the steps with my 2 bodyguards. And my 1 bodyguard was killed. And when I came back down into the bunker, there were 8 people there, including the communist South Vietnamese staff officer, Sergeant First Class Lo, who had been lying there. I thought he was dead. My colonel, Lieutenant Colonel Richard Schott, a hero for all seasons. He had been hit in the head the same time I had been hit in the head with some shrapnel from a 122 millimeter rocket. But his was a penetrating wound. And I told Dick Schott, okay, we're going to get out of here now. We'll have to fight for a couple bunkers until the sun goes down, and then we'll get out of here. But he said, I can't make it. I said, nah, then if you can't make it, I'm staying here with you. And he patted me on the shoulder. He got on the radio, recommended me for the Medal of Honor. Patted me on the shoulder, sat down in a chair, took his .45 pistol, and blew his brains out all over my shirt. Lieutenant Colonel Dick Schott didn't do that as some would portray it later, like he went crazy or nothing. No, he died for me because he knew that I wouldn't leave him, and he didn't think he could make it. And the thing that's amazing is I always thought that he was an old man. Well, he was still in his 30s. And as your life goes on, being in your 30s isn't being an old man anymore. But then I found Sergeant Lull and the Vietnamese were suddenly alive again. So I led them out, and we retook 2 bunkers on the bunker line as I had planned before. And then when the sun went down, I took them out through the minefield. They were all afraid because we had a big minefield there. But you know, I'd seen tanks and everything rolling all through there. I mean, I just followed the tank tracks out to the barbed wire. Well, just as we came out, there was a small unit of NVA that were set there to ambush anybody trying to get away. And at that time, I was hit. Shot in the groin, and a piece of the bullet went up and perforated my bowel. And so naturally, when you fill up with blood, and it's dark, we killed the communists that were there. And then I had to go to the toilet. And so I pulled down my pants, and all this blood and everything came out. And Sergeant First Class Lull said to me, "We're going to go now because one of us has to get out to tell the story." And I said, "How about we both get out to tell the story?" And they turned around and walked away. And I said, "I'll see you in hell. You know, on this earth I will hunt you down." And but my bodyguard, Corporal Hen, and the Vietnamese doctor, who were at that point holding me up, they refused to leave me. And they were both better men than Sergeant Lull ever was. You know, there's a lot of people, when you see people in uniform and all of these things, we're not all the same at all. And I watch on TV, I see this general or that general talking, or a retired general. I knew all these people when they were lieutenants. I know who they really are. The good, the bad, and the ugly. But he left. And when I was captured, General Tran Van Cha, I inquired about him. And General Cha said, "We have him, but he doesn't want to go with you." And but I already told you, General Cha is one of the reasons that I have all the respect in the world for him, the late General Tran Van Cha. He was like me, he was a soldier. And we respected each other, we fought each other. And we tried to kill each other. But in the final analysis, I'm here today because that communist general came and checked on me to make sure that I was okay. And even tried to release me early, though I didn't go. And but Loc Ninh, to this day, they have a museum there about the battle and about, you know, about General Tran Van Cha and I. Of course, they had the wrong picture. 3 of the individuals from Loc Ninh, Major Carlson, Sergeant Wallingford, and the French photographer, Mick Damone, they were pouring gasoline on top of their bunker. I was already out, trying to escape and evade. Because when I called them on the radio, none of them, they were hiding. None of them were on the radio. Well, when they came into the camp, they poured gasoline on that bunker. And of course, they all came crawling out because they didn't want to get burned up. And so there was a picture of them all with their hands in the air. And when I went up to Loc Ninh to make the film that I was supposed to make with General Tran Van Cha, on the wall of their museum, they had a picture, and it had Sergeant Wallingford with his hands up in the air. And it had Captain Mark Zippo Smith surrenders at Loc Ninh. So I ripped it off the wall, which caused them some chagrin. You must understand my feelings about the Vietnamese people. Of all the people in Southeast Asia, I have a Thai wife for 33 years. I adore her. But of all the people in Southeast Asia, the Vietnamese are the most. They have 7,000 years of history. They have fought everybody, including me. But they were also my allies. And to me, the Vietnamese are the smartest and the toughest people in all of Southeast Asia. I have no bad feelings toward the Vietnamese, and I hope someday they'll be free.